Hello everyone and welcome back. It's good to see you again. If you were joining me yesterday, you will have remembered, I'm sure, that we painted a river like this and we did this lovely water with the ripples. Well, today we're going to move that on a bit and we're going to do the reflections of the sea, or the trees, I do beg your pardon. So I have done them in a slightly different colour, but it's the same principle. So we're going to do the same river and we're going to put the reflections in. So I'll pop that over there for the time being. And I've made a bit of a start, just as I had done yesterday. I've done the trees and I have put this in to drop the level of the river so it doesn't look like it's at the same height as the grass. So this time what we do, the reason I didn't do this yesterday is because when you're painting these in watercolour pencils, you have to put the reflections in first. You can do it the other way around, but that is a little bit more complicated. But the easiest way, and for the quickest way I have to tell you, is to do it this way. So what we do, we just start from one end. I'm going to start over here, but you can start whichever end you like. And you more or less copy the overall shape of the tree, but you make it upside down so it's like a mirror reflection. Doesn't have to be perfect, because water does move, so it'll move and disturb the appearance of the reflection. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a perfect mirror image. But we just keep doing that. And if your reflections are blurred and vertical, that will make the water look wet. So we'll just come down here and keep mimicking these trees, but in an upside down manner. So that's all we have to do. No, you don't have to press hard. There's no particular details because this is a river. It's not a still lake, so they're not going to be perfect. The reflections won't be perfect because obviously rivers have a current. If it was a still lake, you would have a beautiful mirror image, but this isn't going to be a mirror reflection. So we need our reflections just to be roughly the same shape, and we need them to be blurred. And we're just going to do this last one here, just up to there. Sometimes painting on the edge is a little bit tricky in pencil, but we'll get there, it'll be alright. So we're going to put that away, and we're going to take our flat, or you can use a filbert. I'm using a filbert because it's the first brush I picked up, but you can use a small flat if you want to. And just like we did yesterday when we painted the water, we're just going to stroke over like that. And if you pick up a bit of that dark as well, that's fine, because the dark will reflect into the water. We'll pop the water on top of this in a minute. But just to begin with, we're going to do these reflections. If we do the trees actually one at a time, otherwise they'll just blur into a horizontal shape. And we'll just do that. Start where we started before and paint in or blend in these trees. Try to make them look a little blurred and keep the reflections vertical. And then when we've finished our river, the water should look as if it's still wet, even when the painting has dried. So that's just another technique for painting water that looks wet, even when our painting has dried. So there we go. So we've put in our reflections. They look like reflections already, really, don't they? With that nice streaky effect. And we're going to keep on with this flat or filbert brush. And I was just giving that a second or two to dry or settle. Normally you would wait for this to dry completely before putting in the water, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to risk, you can just touch it. Oh, well, it's still a little bit damp, but I'm sure it'll be fine. We're going to risk it anyway. And what we do, then all we do, is we do exactly as we did yesterday, and we shade. Let's just start it gently to begin with. No, it's not going to lift. As long as it doesn't lift, that'll be fine. So we don't shade too heavily, we just shade over quite lightly. So we carry on doing that. That is a little bit wet really, but we're going to risk it. It'll be alright. So we carry on, just shading over quite lightly because we want these reflections to shine through. And you can, if we need to, we can always go back over the reflections just a little bit if they need to be enhanced. but hopefully they won't need to be. So obviously when you come down to this bit here, what you're doing is you're reflecting the sky. So the colour is obviously going to change. So this bit here, you're reflecting the trees, and the bit below it, you're actually reflecting the sky. So now that's had a chance to dry, let's see if we can go over it just a bit more. Not too much, just a little. And that was our Oriental Blue. If you're painting in Derwent watercolour pencils or any other pencil brand, use the blues that you like. A nice bright blue with a slightly more muted blue to add shadows. So this is Smalt Blue, but any sort of muted blue will do. So we're not going to do too much of that because we don't want to overpower it. So we're going to leave it like that for now. And then again, we're going to take our flat or filbert brush, and just like we did yesterday and with our reflections, we're going to use the tip and paint in the ripples like that. So we'll just keep doing that. And you can see these lovely reflections coming through the water. So we carry on, and once we're done, we will have some beautiful reflections of trees in our river. So that's what we do. We just keep on carrying on this little area here until we finished, which we have. So just make sure everything is blended. We haven't got any dry pencil showing. And that, I think, will do. And we have some wonderful reflections. In fact, you can if you want to. In fact, I probably will. Just go over this a little bit stronger. Just a little bit stronger. Not much. But if you do it while it's still damp, you will get these little ripples, which add to the wet effect. So we're just going to do it just like that, while it's all still nice and damp, because that way we can add some ripples as well, so it'll look even more realistic, which is brilliant. I just thought that those trees needed a little bit more colour in them, those reflections. They weren't quite, for me anyway, they weren't quite bright enough or strong enough. But I think that will do. And there you have a river with reflected trees. And that's what our river looked like before we put any reflections in. Let's see if I move my pencils out of the way just for a minute, and then you can see the difference. So that's without, that's with, and I hope you'll agree that this, although it's slightly muted here, we can always strengthen this up a bit later on if we want to. But that's how we paint our river and reflections. And as I say, once it is dried, we can just keep going over this until we're happy with the shade and the depth of colour. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry it was a little bit longer than our usual videos, but sometimes reflections do take a bit longer. And tomorrow we'll be back with another river scene, but this time I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful sunset river, or paint one. So I'll see you tomorrow. And in the meantime, do stay safe, take great care, and enjoy your paintings. Bye bye for now.